Hi, so after the announcement for the release date of Battle for Azeroth and the other things that Blizzard talked about, I said I'd do a separate video on World PvP. And there's two main sections to this one. So in the first instance, what I want to talk about is what they're bringing into World PvP for Battle for Azeroth, which of course is the big faction v faction expansion. So although I don't think a lot of us really believe they were going to do a lot for PvP with it, it sounds like they're doing something at any rate, so I want to talk about that. But I also want to talk about their attitude to World PvP, and that's going to be in the second part. So the first part, so we know that we're getting now an option in Battle for Azeroth. What I mean by that is, at the moment, if you're on a PvE realm, then you can just go around your normal questing. There could be enemy faction players there. You're not going to bother each other unless someone flags themselves PvP or gets flagged PvP. There used to be some dirty tricks for people doing that. I remember back when I was a very new player, I was on a PvE server, as I'd been for most of the time. And there was this hunter, a horde hunter, he used to go to low-level alliance areas, and he would basically get his pet to stand in a bush around other, like it was a wolf, around other wolves, in the hope that an alliance player would hit it, therefore flagging themselves as PvP. Then they would just kill them. And they were much higher level, so of course it was just a case of ping, dead, if the pet didn't kill them first, that is. Which is funny looking back at it now, but it's a dick thing to do. And this sort of feeds into, you know, this notion of World PvP now. And when I eventually moved to a PvP server, it wasn't so I could engage in this World PvP. It was because that's where all the raiding guilds were. And every time I used to moan about, oh, I'm just going about my daily business and some fool attacks me, which on my main is not that big a deal, because 9 times out of 10, they're going to be the ones, you know, having to release spirit. But when it's on lower geared alts, it's a ball ache. It's a massive ball ache. People say, well, you shouldn't be on a PvP server. And it's a bit like, well, that's where the guilds are. But we're now getting the choice. We get to decide. So PvE and PvP zones will be meaningless. I don't think they'll even be called that. It won't make sense. Because it's now a personal choice for you, which is absolutely fantastic. So, what are Blizzard going to do to incentivize people to flag themselves? Because they want to encourage this vision they have of World PvP. They just acknowledge that it's not very fair to be forced into it. So, there's War Mode. So, you flag yourself either War Mode on or War Mode off. War Mode on is just like, it's like being on a PvP server or realm. And what happens is when you're engaging in this, because they acknowledge that if you're trying to quest and level your character and stuff like that, or do your world quests, it's going to take longer if you're engaging in this World PvP. So they want to incentivize it with rewards. So you have a bar that you're going to fill up, like an honor bar, I guess. And when you fill it up, you get a piece of gear. All right, it can be a weapon or other piece of gear, and each week they said in the end of the week you'll get another piece of gear as well. I don't know whether that's like a Mythic Plus system where it's almost like you get a cash or something. If you filled up at least one bar the previous week, you'll get a bonus piece of gear the following week. I assume that's what they mean by that. I don't actually know. So there's that aspect to it as well. It does say if you're a gladiator level player, there's still a random loot system that rewards gear competitive with red gear. And the idea is, so you fill up these bars, you get these pieces of gear. And once you've got the set, so the implication is, I'm only going by scraps of information here. The implication, I suppose, is you're not going to duplicate a piece of gear. So once you've got your full set, then the next bars you're filling up will give you better quality gear. So I suppose it's a bit like a prestige system, only it's not really prestige. You're getting actual gear out of it. You know, you get the first set, then you get your second set, and it's all nice and sequential. Sounds like an absence of RNG to it as well, because you know where you are on the bar. So do you know what? I think that sounds pretty good. That sounds encouraging, and it is the sort of thing that I think could encourage people to engage in this. The most important factor is that it will put you into shards with other players who have a similar flag. So if you've flagged yourself, you know, War Mode off, you'll be in a shard with other players with War Mode off. if you flagged yourself war mode on, you'll be in a shard with other players war mode on. That's the general idea, which of course makes sense. What you ideally want is a situation where you're in the same area as other people who wish to engage with you. It's all right flagging yourself war mode on, isn't it? And going around and just seeing orange names because everyone else in the opposite faction has said, not today, thank you. So that sounds pretty good as well. That's the obvious thing to do, but it does sound like that's the sort of thing that would work there. It said that honor talents are now tied to player level and will be unlocked as you level to 120. I was wondering where they were in the Battle for Azeroth, so I'm guessing that means they're going to be turned off. It's going to be a little bit weird for the pre-expansion patch, though. I wish I knew a bit more about this. I hope some people ask some pertinent questions in interviews, because does that mean they're going to go away just when BFA launches? Or, because usually with the pre-expansion patch, that's when we get all the following expansion abilities. Does that mean that the talents are just going to disappear then? That's a bit harsh. So I don't know how that's supposed to work there. But anyway, so the other thing is with Group Finder, it says it'll only list groups with players that have the same war mode toggle state as you. And also, although you can manually group with people with a different toggle, you won't see them out in the world. So it is very much a choice, not just whether you want to be flagged for PvP or not, but it's actually a choice about what sort of server you want to be on. Do you want to be on a PvE server with all those sort of rules? Do you want to be on a PvP server? And you will not be visible for people with the opposite toggle on. So it's keeping you completely separate, but it still means, of course, you know, you can still go to whatever realm and play with friends or particular guild that you've joined or whatever. And it's a personal choice for you. So that all sounds brilliant. So now on to the second part where I wanted to talk about their attitude to World PvP, because this got me face palming. Not just one face palm, a full-on double face palm, because this is just quoted from MMA Champion. The team isn't 100% sure why players are hesitant to engage in PvP combat. Is it the fact that there is a person on the other end, so they feel pressure and stress, or is it the behaviour of the character on the other end? Right, okay. So there's two aspects to this. The first one is, you're not sure? Why don't you ask? I've said this before and I'll say it again. And do you know what? I'm probably going to say it again and again and again until they actually do it. Why don't you put surveys in the game? We know the technology exists. Every time I write a ticket and get a response from a GM, all of a sudden there's a questionnaire. Ooh, click, 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 click. Why don't you ask these questions? Simple enough, isn't it? There's a finite number of reasons that people can have, all right? Work them out, send out a survey. Oh, are you someone who likes to engage in World PvP, all right? And you can be specific. Do you enjoy attacking other players in World PvP, yes or no? Do you enjoy being attacked by other players in World PvP, yes or no? And then you can go down the reasons where you know, if you enjoy it, fine. But if you don't, next questions. If you don't enjoy it, what's the reasons? Is it because you sort of like if it was 1v1, but when it's 4 of them mugging one of you, you don't like that? You don't like it when you're much lower item level than that? You go down the list, okay, of the reasons why either you wouldn't want to attack other players or you wouldn't want to be attacked. You can then find out. Surveys are amazing for that. Obviously, if it's a survey that's going to require a complicated answer, they can't read millions of responses. But, you know, if it's something where there's a finite choice of possible responses and they just have to tick a radio button, it's so simple. And they can have a pie chart the following week. Anyway, but the other thing is, I'm just going to explain from my point of view. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to be like one of these people on the forum that assumes that every other player is exactly like me. And the reason why World PvP is a failure is because of the exact reason that I don't like about it. No, I know that there's different people have different views on World PvP. My personal view on World PvP is this. So, the reason why I don't attack other players, in fact, in Legion... In Legion, where we very frequently came into contact with opposite faction players, I remember leveling, and I have, you know, an ability as a rep paladin called Wake of Ashes, which spreads a cone out in front of me. It's a normal ability. When I was attacking the same like rare mob or something like that as an opposite faction player, I'd even angle myself away to reduce the cleave on them. Sometimes I wouldn't even use some of my cleave abilities, even when I normally would want to avoid attacking them. And many other opposite faction players showed the same courtesy to me. I was hardly ever attacked while I was leveling in Legion on a PvP server, and I never attacked anyone else, apart from once by accident. It was an accident. I thought they were an NPC, sorry. But, you know. And I think the reason is because we understand that we have some empathy. We know there's a person at the other end of the character. What is that person doing there? What's their motivation? They're questing, they're leveling. Do they want the pain in the arse of being stabbed by me? No, they don't. Right? Just like I don't. That's the reason for me. It's non-consensual. We don't want to force people to do it. It's a bit like, you know, you go to the park with your mates to have a bit of a kick around, have a game of football, and, you know, you split yourself into two teams. One is a person light. So you go, oh, you know, we need another person. And you go to a fella on the bench who's just sat there eating a sandwich, having a drink for their lunch. And you go, come on, mate, we're a person down. Come and join my team. Right? You kick the ball towards them, it smashes their sandwich into their face, their drink goes flying into some dog walker that was going past. Of course you wouldn't do that in real life because you'd get a smack in the mouth, or at the very least an handbag over the head. But people will do it in an online situation because there's no consequences. The game allows it, and you're not going to get a smack in the mouth or a handbag over the head. And so people will do that. But, you know, a lot of people like myself will just appreciate that that's the person on the other end who is doing something. They're not up for the PvP thing there. So you don't. That's why in my particular case. So what you actually want is a situation whereby you can know that everyone there is up for PvP. And that's always why I bring up Elder Scrolls Online, for example, because you can there's a whole area, a whole massive zone, and it's specifically designed for PvP. It's absolutely fantastic for it. You can go in on your own, obviously going to get your head kicked in, but it's still fun. It's fun because whenever I go in there, I am wanting to PvP. I don't mind how many times I die because that's what I'm going in there for. Well, not to die, but I accept it. And the other players in there are also in there. They know they're going to be attacked and attack others. Obviously, you'll do better. You'll have more fun if you're in a group, and you're even better if you're in an organised group, i.e. a guild group. And I've got experience of that sort of thing from Warhammer Online as well. That's when PvP's fun. So Blizzard obviously don't want to do that. For whatever reason, they don't want to create this self-contained area where there's no guilds, there's nothing like that, because everyone in that area is wanting to do the PvP. So will this solve that problem? It actually might, because if you've got to manually flag yourself war mode on, and you're only going to be in an area where there's other people who've also made that decision because of the sharding, then actually you're creating the same situation, aren't you? You're actually saying, yes, I am prepared to be mugged by 5 people or by someone with much higher item level than me, and I'm going to do the same to them if I get the chance. And at that point, it's totally consensual. Everyone in that area is fair game, and they've chosen to be fair game, and that's what I think makes the difference. So I'd still prefer the large-scale battles that you can only get in an area where you've got specific objectives, a massive land area. Because in Elder Scrolls Online, for example, just to come to that, you know, I mean, there was a situation, I just went in just to get a little bit of footage here on my own, you know, very off-peak time. There's nothing much going on. But nonetheless, you can still see exactly what happens. You go to an area, you defend in one of your own forts. All right, you get steamroller. So then you go, okay. But it doesn't, you know, if you don't fancy that and you want to be on the attacking side, well, you're the same faction. There's some more players of the same faction going off to attack a different place as well anyway. So you can do attack and defense as you want. And the whole terrain, it's much more interesting travelling around it because the terrain is specifically designed to have good ambush points, but it's also vast. So you also can take long ways round where you've got a lower chance of being ambushed, that sort of thing. It's much, much more interesting. Siege weapons, all the rest of it. And don't even talk about Winter Grasps to me. This is way, way above that. And the objectives are sort of down to you, depending on the scale of your group, or if you're on your own, whatever it is. That's what I'd prefer. If they had that in WoW, that's what I'd engage with. But as I say, my primary criticism with World PvP in WoW was always this: forcing people into it that didn't want to take part. That looks like it's going away, so it's going to get my blessing. It's not what I'd want to engage in, but at least now that primary criticism disappears. So anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and share with other people who may also be interested. And until next time, I'll see you later.